And so people sort of like, I can see in your field, even though you said you've stepped, or maybe you haven't really said that, but at one point you were in Christianity. Are you still immersed in that? Because I see Jesus moving in and out of your aura quite often. Is there still a relationship with his energy, or?
You say that, and I haven't noticed. I haven't delved into that. I'll say that.
Yeah.
For a long time, I didn't. After I moved out of it, there was a frustration, anger thing there, right? Feeling like, this kept me from what I could have been, could have known. But I've since come to the understanding that, like you said, people are perfect right where they are.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people who are benefiting from the establishment of those ideas perfectly for where they are in their evolution.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you have to understand that, and you have to be careful when you say that somebody's like, it's been a long time since I've listened to Joel Osteen used to.
Yeah.
You have to be careful because it's very difficult. It's very tricky when you don't really know someone's heart.
Sure.
You have to be careful that you're not perceiving. You are perceiving through your filters and what maybe other people or media are projecting out, and you're accepting their ideas without knowing the heart of a person. And when you start doing that, you're operating in a low vibration. You're not, and that would take you quickly into a low vibration, because a higher vibration perspective is like what you said. You see it completely differently.
Yeah.
And whether he has, even his messages that I remember, whether there's a sidebar agenda or whatever, potentially, there are a lot of people benefiting from it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's something.
I mean, his realization is, okay, so you get into a space where people will compensate you for this awareness, this consciousness. Okay, that's fine.
Right.
Look, everything is an energy, frequency, vibration. I also realize that human beings, as they're they're level upping, they're realizing there is absolutely a necessity for a transfer of energy and validating what they're experiencing. So when people are sort of like, well, if this is what it is, everything should be free and everything, well, it's still an energy. So for you to validate what Benny's sharing with you or myself sharing with you, there is a certain level where you need to sort of invest in the whole experience, however that may be. Whether I'm not sure the framework of how you structure your workshops or whatever you teach people, but I'm sure there's some type of compensation that is offered. And you know what? That's, again, another programming, Benny. Oh, no. And you see, this is what I've come across. And I've come across this for decades, where I've got students that have invested blood, sweat, and tears into their piece of paper. I'm a doctor. I'm a psychiatrist. I'm a Chinese medicine doctor. I'm an acupuncturist. I'm a chiropractor. I'm all these things. And in some cases, I've got students that they're literally in debt $750,000 on these inspiring things. Yet they cannot create this connection of healing that they're desiring. And then they end up on my doorstep, because it's like, there's nothing more powerful than energy. And so what happens is, though, they have this sort of relationship where then they get into a field like acupuncture or chiropractic, something of that nature, that has been watered down and diminished. And so there's so many, like anything, there's a variable of this person. Someone could say, oh, I've used acupuncture, it doesn't work. Well, maybe perhaps because you've connected with someone that is a practitioner of that doesn't connect with the frequency that you're at, and that's why it didn't work out. That's understandable. But to say that acupuncture doesn't work in a blanket statement is very, very contracted, very limited in of itself. So when you sort of get there, it's kind of like, okay, a lot of people in healing, they go, I'm going to use a sliding scale. And because they don't feel value in themselves, they end up in a scenario where they have this sliding scale where people are paying them, you know, in their equivalent to barely being able to value what they're doing. And it's all because they're manifesting this relationship. They're manifesting this relationship with their students, their clients, their community. And okay, I value this, but the money makes me uncomfortable. So I don't want to talk about that. I'm not going to speak on that. I'm not going to give you an answer, just a sliding scale, whatever you can afford. And of course, people start to then value it. Well, what can I afford? What can't I afford? What's valuable enough to me to make this realize? And then it becomes this interwoven struggle with all these perceptions of reality. So what are your thoughts on that as an understanding? Because we are in a space where, you know, the more and more you share with people, the more and more I've only ever worked on that model over my natural born life where people, I value myself, so they value me, and it becomes a situation where it's expressed through that. And when they experience things, it's solidified. It's actually, it's now tangible. They can actually use it, and it's repeatable. What are your thoughts on that?
The idea of abundance is what comes to mind. That's on me as far as the challenge for people, and you know, within myself, that's one of the things that I'm unraveling now.
I have a habit of aura dipping. One of my students called it that. So I was like, I could see that, and in Lutz is like, ask Benny about this question. I think we need to go a little deeper on this one. We're here to support him. Let's share.
Yeah. That's one of the things that I'm unraveling, and that's the challenge. And what I have seen is that the more, like you said, it's still a selfish game. The more value that you see in us and anybody listening, the more value you see in yourself, the more that value returns. Because we don't make anybody pay anything. People offer it. And I tell people, if you're inspired to, now I got to make sure that I'm not saying that from a worry or fear of rejection place, but if you're inspired to, right? Our workshops are $55. A private session, which is almost 2 hours, is $297. And then my overall program is all encompassing, that I meet with people, which is what I've always wanted. I always want to be in close contact with people consistently, right? The private Facebook group, all of that, all of the stuff, all the bells and whistles, and it's starting to accumulate all kinds of information in there now from the question and answers that we do weekly. It's $1,100. But people want to give more, especially after they see the value.
And
right?
that
in myself. I spent on a program, I spent $5,000 on a program that I wasn't strong enough internally to actually put into play. That was nothing compared to what I talk about and share with people. Nothing. The stuff that I talk about would allow you to use that program and explode with it. But if you don't have the internal framework to be able to go out and put into action what you're inspired to do, it's not ever going to happen.
Right.
So, you know, I'm having to unravel that within myself, right? Because I grew up in the idea implied constantly of lack and scarcity. So anyone listening, you have to notice if that's what you're believing in, you got to unravel that stuff because it's not true. And I know you've heard it. People talk about it all the time. The more someone pays, the higher the value they see.
I mean, that's a psyop, but it also is very clear and measurable.
Yeah, the more they get out of it, the more they get, and I know it's been true for me, right? The more I have put into something, and actually that inverse working of it, it's that expectation. I'm expecting to get this, and I get it. And it's because that the investment narrows the focus, it narrows your energy, and you pull that which you are needing in the moment. But if you're objecting or you're feeling some kind of way about what is being asked of as an investment, then that's a internal conflict to the idea of abundance. And if you take your eye off of that particular thing and look around in your experience, you'll see that you're resisting abundance. You're resisting. And you have to open yourself up to it. And that, like I said, that's what I'm unraveling now, seeing, like you said, cycle, seeing the cycle of it, how it flows, how it's constantly present. You look out in nature, abundance is the truth, not lack and scarcity. If lack and scarcity was the truth, everything would cease to exist. There wouldn't be enough seeds. There wouldn't be enough animals being born. All of that stuff. Lack and scarcity is not the truth, but we've been conditioned to it. We're so powerful that we can create the presence of a thing or its absence. The presence of a thing or its absence. We have to understand that.
Now, my goodness, brother, this is beautiful. Now, what he's speaking of is so profound, understanding the deeper nature of what the universe is. So when Benny talks about everything is abundance, and I always speak this, like everything is abundant, timeless, endless, limitless, infinite. That's the truth, right? So from a Taoist perspective, we sort of cottoned onto this tens of thousands of years ago within our internal alchemy practices. So what does that mean? It's like, so if you're facing some type of like energetic practice and you come across it and they tell you, you have to sit mindfully in a fasted state, don't eat this, do that, say something else, be contracted, be celibate, all these things. From my own personal realization and past lives, bringing it to this present moment, that is fundamentally false in relation to the universe. And so, you know, when people tell you to obtain a high level of energy cultivation, you must be celibate. You must remove yourself from any sort of like interaction or sexual creation is a fallacy, from my opinion, because everything is energy. In actuality, when you are having a moment of climax, that is the most powerful, magical moment to create whatever it is that you want as your realized effect. Coming back to what Benny's talking about, which is abundance. So for you to be abundant, you must live in abundance. For you to express abundance, you must live in abundance. And this is where Benny's like, he's being, it's like a confessing moment. Okay, you got me. Let me confess here for a little minute.
Yeah.
I'm unraveling this very moment because it's like, this is clearly, of course, as we know, there are no coincidences. This moment of time is just another realization for Benny to realize this is nothing. It's not even a blip on the radar, the realization of that. And the more you reinforce it, the more you share with me the fundamentals of your energetic compensation and then expression of that through this money like frequency is, you know, honestly, I would multiply that by 10, and then we might be in the ballpark of what someone should be paying to get the information that you're sharing. And that's just how I see things. Normally when I get, you know, I spent many decades working with people within Silicon Valley, CEOs, all that kind of stuff. And I got to a point where, you know, enough was enough within the affluent people that have a blank check to go, okay, I want you to do the monkey and the grinder stuff, do the psychic stuff, do the healing stuff, do the channeling stuff. So I spent a lot of time working. And so for them to compensate me, I was able to go out and work with the guy at 7-Eleven or, you know, Spartan Final that is having a bad day, and I can go out and change their reality in seconds because I'm not consumed with the catalyst of this energy that is surrounding me going, what about the bills? What about this? What about that? All that's a distraction. So that was handed to me so I can then go, all right, I'm working with these people. They compensate me so I can go out and help everyone I can basically impact or affect in a way that raises their frequency.
Right.
And then I got to a point where, you know, I'm sitting in a room and I've got this guy who's, you know, running $1 billion company going, okay, now I want you to read the energies of these high executives. And I'm starting to go, this is not, you know, what am I doing? What am I doing at this point? Like, I'm doing readings where they're using my sensory perception to basically filter out their inner circle, finding, you know, silly things. Oh, you want to be the CFO of a company and you just applied for this, but can we speak more of the fact that, you know, you're also arrested for embezzlement and fraud and things? And people are like, how do you even know this stuff? It's like, it's just information. I'm not I personally, I really like you. I'm not invested in it, but this is. And so when I got to that point, I was like, I gotta stop. And I sat in council with my teachers, and they're like, perfect. This is where you've done enough of this, and now let's move on to a greater thing. So then I you know, 7 months ago, I got involved in social media, and I was like, okay, now let's get a message out. You know, I created this sort of like digital asset that basically, in essence, is a visual audible experience, creating a kinesthetic charge, validating the experience, right? So the experience, and when I measure people's brainwaves, they're always at a high gamma, 40 and above. Like when I channel, I go, you know, 100, 200 hertz. And so this is measurable. This is 100% consciousness, ladies and gentlemen. When you're in that gamma, which Benny is playing with all the time, he, just for the audience to understand this. So his aura is extremely bright. It's a sort of a gold white phosphorus color. And he is just sitting there listening to his source information, his teachers, his insight, getting information that would be pertinent to our experience, our expression right now. And he's sort of, you know, taking it, processing it, and doing however he filters it, and then bringing it back into the conversation. Would that be accurate?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, you know, he's doing it with his eyes open, and he's smiling, and he's happy, and he's not like, you know, in the lotus position with 3 incense burning, singing Kumbaya and drawing in his spirit guides. And there's nothing wrong with that either. But understand that as you become more refined in your cultivation, these types of things are 1000% how you process this information. And of course, I'm only speaking from my own experience, but this is a level of sensory perception where he's receiving the information, and then he goes to higher levels of that where, you know, we could have a moment where he's completely immersed as a channel, and the information is coming out of him word for word, and it's in a different state, different demeanor, different energy, a whole different thing. Would that be accurate?
I'll say probably. I don't know.
Well, you've never watched yourself, right? Yeah,
right.
yeah. No, you know, I mean, if you,
I know it's different. I know it feels different even from right now. If I close my eyes and focus in and let them talk, it feels different. My country twang disappears. I noticed that on the videos when I listen to it. Like, I don't sound the same. It's not there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's different.
Yeah. No, and so, you know, getting back to this whole thing is this filtering of. So I got to that crossroads, and so it was like my teacher said, "Go out, create this app, and then we're going to awaken not just, you know, thousands of people, but millions of people." That's right. You know, because this app is sort of like it dials in all your energy centers. So basically, the first point of business for anybody, if they're attempting to master their emotions, they will be able to do. I don't know what that is. That always comes up on me. I have no idea what that is. It's really weird. This always comes up during, podcasts, this weird thing. And then graffiti comes up behind me. It's really weird. Anyway, I don't know where it's coming from. And so, you know, the mastering of the emotions is the first point of entry. So you can get down with the get down, get up with the get up, expand yourself and not be distracted. So I always use that as a baseline. And part of the app that I created was like 2 years worth of training from first energy center all the way up to 81. And we got up to 108, but 81's like 2 years worth of material. I think you want ascension, you're going to get ascension at a point of no return that you want to be at. But the most important thing is John Smith, Mary Lou Bennett, it doesn't matter who it is. All you do is hit play on this thing, and it's like you've had 5 pina coladas, a full body massage, in 7 days in the Bahamas. That's the side effect, and that's part of what I know you're speaking of when it comes to the sound, the frequency, the vibration. And I want more and more people to embody that without a perception of how am I supposed to perceive it from a spiritual perception, a religious perception. It's all got to do with the feeling. That ascension will get greater. And your sensory perception, whether you see things with your eyes open, eyes closed, or you don't see anything at all as a third eye, these are all just developmental skills that you acquire. And that no one is absent of these sensory perceptions. I always tell people, as long as you are human and you have 5 senses and you have neurology, you'll be affected by the material that we put out. Well, I put out, I know the same thing with you. And so it's like, the only people that I'm a little concerned with is aliens. I'm not so sure. And I mean, strangely enough, it seems to be a lot of that type of stuff. And I've been doing this 30 years and I've never really come across that. But lately, Benny, probably the last couple of months, I see tons of aliens moving in and out of people's auric fields.
Wow.
Like tons. So it's wild. Hang on a second. Yeah. Sorry, my wife just came in. A part of me. And so the understanding of this whole thing where people are getting immersed in the alien connection is really interesting because it's never been something. So I'm out here. I don't know where you're at. I'm in Nevada, Las Vegas. So I go around. I'm outside of it, but I go to all the hotels and start reading all the energies and the spirits and entities that are running in there. And it's a field day, my friend. It is something else when you get down to this, the way that they sort of like frame things out from just the construct of the buildings and what they're doing with the geometry, the sacred geometry, the layout, the feng shui. It's all in direction of a loss. That, you know, these people are putting this stuff together. It's very, very deliberate, the construct, so that they're leaning on people like yourself or myself, you know, me as a feng shui expert, and they bring people like us in to form a certain construct so that when someone walks through the door, they're a loser. They're not going to win. The outcome is, oh yeah.
Wow.
And so, you know, it would make sense because, you know, that's their business, is to take your money. As you know, the idea that, you know, you're going to win is an idea. And more often than not, if you listen to the rhetoric and someone goes, guess what, you know, just take it at face value. It's fun. Only take money in there if you don't mind losing it. It's not a big deal. That mindset in of itself, as Benny is referred to, is the greatest way for you to lose in the beginning. Now, if you just started with, I'm going to win big, then you're going to win big. And, you know, I have been, I'll be honest, I have had a few moments there where I sit there and I'll read the energy and, you know, I'll do a roulette for a couple of minutes, and then I get a little sweaty because it's like, it's supposed to be random. It's a 50-50. But when I get like 20 spins right, and they're looking at me like, this guy seems to move it back, how? And they're starting to look at me like, how is this guy move? I mean, it's random. There's no way that he could know there's 6 blacks, 2 reds, 1 black, 7 reds. And then they start, then my personality gets a little squirmy because I feel like they're looking at me like, is he cheating? And all I'm doing is reading the energy. That's it. And so then I stop. And I've done this a couple of times, and I just stay away from it because it's it's entertaining. It's a lot of fun, but people really put their whole, they embody being the loser, and that's more than likely most of the people in these casinos are very much that. And then you have a lot of spirits that are either there to protect, or in some cases I've found hotels that have been laid down on ancient burial grounds from, you know, American Indians, and crazy energies that are immersed in the actual building that are conflicting with the other constructs of spirits that have been drawn in there due to the sacred geometry. It's wild stuff. It's really exciting. I really enjoyed doing those readings. I did a couple so far. I've got a lot more. I did one on Luxor, one on Caesar's Palace. and then I'm going down through the Rio, New Orleans, and then the Paris. The Paris one is really interesting because they're telling me there's a lot of like aliens that are hanging out there, and like a lot of the shapes and the geometry of that whole construct are actually like spaceships. I'm like,
wow,
really interesting stuff. And I'm like, I'm kind of really excited about getting down there and just doing an overhaul and a review of it, because this is the world that we live in, Benny. This is the
right,
stuff that gets exciting, is that we can have access to this sensory perception.
right.
And as you acquire the skill through Benny's training and myself, you're able to get in there and validate it for yourself. And it's like, it's always that moment, right? So it's like, I had a brilliant shining light many months ago on my podcast, and this guy's a really fresh. He's in his early 30s. He's an incredible marketer, and I could see this particular. He was embodying a reincarnation of this particular person, and I said, "You first and foremost, Jesus and God is just emanating from his presence. Like I was burning my eyes out just looking at him, because he was so connected with these energies."
Yeah.
And then I said, okay, so I said, do you believe in reincarnation? He goes, well, I haven't had any evidence of it in what I know within my Christianity, my faith, whatever, but I'm always open to hearing. And I thought, that's cool. Okay. So if you had a moment to process in your mind what you believe is you would be a reincarnation of, who do you think it would be? And I already knew it. I was looking at his energy, right? And he was like, okay, well, and I said, stop 1 minute. Let me share with the audience what I can see. And he goes, okay, because he's kind of got a disbelief in the way that his mind is processing or programming within his own belief system. And I said, Martin Luther King, and he went, oh, holy moly! And I said, that's who you are, because he's so powerful. He walks in a room and people listen. Now, that expression of that, people go, oh, Martin Luther King, he was a womanizer. Everyone has to assassinate the character of somebody. There was a reason for his imprinting transmission within the human history that was necessary for him to be present, and he's expressed through that realization. And that has evoked other things that have been created within human history to where we are today. So again, I would always bring back the construct of, when you dismiss someone else's belief system, you dismiss your own. But this guy had a mind-boggling twist in his head that he knew this he knew it intuitively.
Yeah.
And this was sort of like, it's like, I can't deny it. Like he almost died, like literally inside.
Yeah.
And it took him a minute to recompose himself and align himself, because how do you know that? Within my faith, that's not possible. Within my faith, you can't possibly have that type of access to information. And that's where that's where you had a crossroads in your own realization within your own experiences. Speak more on that, Benny. What do you think?
Well, and that's what I was going to say. That disconnect is his belief system, his own inner makeup, being able to allow that in. Because right after the out of body experience, I almost literally, it felt like, but I was kind of walking around for about 2 weeks, like I was looking up in the sky, like, okay, well, what's really true? About 2 weeks, because it jarred my system. Right? The out-of-body experience that I know I experienced, that I know wasn't a dream, it jarred my system. So it took about 2 weeks for me to get things back together. And it really felt like I was just walking around, looking up in the sky, like, okay, what's real then? Because obviously this is not the real thing based on what happened to me, based on my experience now. Right? So it kind of feels like, what happened, that what you were shared with him, it can be difficult. But the alien thing, I was just listening a couple of weeks ago about, I can't remember if it's California or Nevada. I know the guy was saying it was a desert area that he visits and he does things with the energy, and that there's a portal or an opening there to another dimension, and there's always aliens coming in and out of that opening in that area that he can perceive. These type things are going to be
more and more apparent,
be more aware of, that have always been, but it's just our level of consciousness wasn't allowing that information in, on top of the fear teachings. Our movies and all these things want us to be afraid of these things, right? And that separates us from it. And it's the belief system. But the more you go inward, and the more you realize the truth on the inside, and that it doesn't have an ending, and that there are, the minute you start believing in channels and psychics and guides and all of that stuff, you can't dismiss all of the other stuff. You can't believe in that and dismiss all of the other stuff. You can't do it.
It's the old expression, once you see it, you cannot unsee it.
Right.
Right. I mean, out here in the desert, we go deep in. I'll take people out on excursions to all the pyramids, because there are natural form pyramids everywhere, right? So within China, we have hundreds of actually formed pyramids that are very distinct, very similar to the ones you find in Egypt and across the globe. And we've used them through our own divination practices to cultivate energies from the constellations, right? So there's ancient Taoist rituals where we do what we call star stepping, and we use the stars to align, to cultivate, do animal magic, plant magic, weather magic. It doesn't really matter, but you're attuning to these constellations, which you and I are sort of like an expression of a highly evolved level of that. Like, all the ancient Taoist teachings and rituals that have been handed to me that I've been aware of and have been training people in for decades, sort of get to a certain point where your level of ascension means that you don't have to go to your little Harry Potter book of experiences. You think it and it becomes realized. Mm-hmm. So there's the concentration of that, where it's a reinforcement, because you feel the need for the foundation of the incantation, the magic, all these things that create your reality, and go, oh, look, I want this manifestation. And it sort of morphed into, the magic has kind of morphed into this sort of like more spiritual, universal word of manifestation that has now sort of generated into, the higher the frequency, the higher the ability to transform this 3D reality and make it real. And when I say real, it's real to you and I, but I love to see people's eyes like saucers when they have a moment, whether it's a mental, emotional, or physical experience, and you can alter that right in front of their very eyes, and they go, whoa, this really took place. It's like I was completely traumatized, or, I had PTSD, and you literally helped me erase it. That's something I've been struggling with for 30 years, and it's gone. I can't find it. Mm-hmm. Like someone, say, for example, that easily measurable, someone who has height issues, like they're afraid of heights. Mm-hmm. You remove that trauma within them, and they're standing at the edge of a cliff going, I've never been more content and happy. And 5 minutes ago, I'd spent 30 years struggling with this very PTS, or what I perceive as a syndrome. Mm-hmm. And so these types of things, or a physical thing, right, where you actually see the tissue morph and wiggle before your very eyes. Now that is something that I maybe it's just because I know who I am as a reincarnation, but I've been experiencing that from literally day one over 30 years ago. And it's sort of like, what are you talking about? Well, it just, and I attribute it to this: accept everything at face value. Mm-hmm. So I've used this story before, because this is my entry-level story, right? The audience has probably heard it, but I'm going to share it with Benny right now. So this was literally 30 years ago. I got a crash course in distant healing, right? Mm-hmm. And so this was part of my training as a priest. We're going to go through this. So I had a whole intensive. And I've got my little manual. I've got this. You do these things. You got to put these things together. Anyway, back in the day, there's a rotary phone. You pick it up. You talk to people. Not a cell phone. Guys, like, my kids wouldn't even know what I'm talking about. Anyway, so I had a friend of mine. I was going to meet this woman, and she calls me up and says, I'm sorry, I can't meet you. I'm like, oh, okay. That's disappointing. And she goes, I sprained my ankle. It's the size of a watermelon. I can't even walk on it right now. I'm like, okay, all right. Okay, well, we'll catch up next week. Okay, no problem. And she's just about to get off the phone. I go, whoa, hang on. She's like, what? I just learned this stuff today. And I'm like, let me try it out. What's the,
Right.
what are you talking? And she's like, what are you talking about? Well, I just learned this in class. Let me check it out. So I literally, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is it. Face value. That's it. And all I did was do this. I went through the processes, and this is very much in the construct of your perception. And then the final part was the incantation. And I said, look, I'm going to say this stuff a couple of times. Don't be too concerned by it. And she's like, oh, yeah, all right. Okay, look, I want to get off the phone. Okay, just give me a second. So I went through it. I went, and then I went, heal, 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 heal. And next minute I heard, what the fuck? And I was like, whoa, what's going on? She screamed through the phone. I'm like, okay, what's happening? She's like, my ankle shrunk before my very eyes and disappeared, and I'm standing on it right now. I'm like, get out of here. You're full of crap. I was like, you're full of crap. You're full of it. Stop lying to me. She goes, I don't know what you're up to, but I've never experienced anything like that in my life. And of course, I met up with her that day. And then I come across her mother, who's like, it's like something out of a Hollywood movie, right? So I just started on this journey. Her mother, she had the sprained ankle. So I go over she goes, I'm at my mother's house. Come and pick me up. I'm like, okay. So I go over to her mother's house, right? And she's like walking around, and her mother's like sitting in a chair, like there's a fire going. It's a dark night. The whole house is like basically wraparound glass, right? So she lived up in a certain affluent part of like California, Northern California. And so she's up in this sort of like mountain area on her little like couch. She's got a throne. She's puffing her cigarettes, and she's got an open fire and this glass around her. Her daughter's sitting on the couch. And I roll up there, and I'm like, wow, show me. And like the mother's like, I knew you were a healer. I'm like, what? This is really going on. She's freaking me out. And I'm like, what's going on here? She goes, look, it's gone. I'm like, look, I know this is it. It's a lot of fun, right? You make me feel better. I'm cool with it. It's like, no, you're a healer. This is what you do. I'm like, her ankle was this big.
Yeah.
It's gone. And I'm like, sure it was. Sure. And this is disbelief, right?
Yeah.
Not 5 minutes later, I'm dealing with the mother, like a week later, right? And she doesn't do doctors, right? So she drinks a bottle of vodka and smokes a pack of cigarettes every day. It's just the reality of the world we live in, right? And, and then people go, how is it possible that someone can smoke cigarettes and drink alcohol and live to 120? Because they believe it, and they don't have a disbelief and immerse themselves in fear. They're just, they're satisfied with their experience. And that's how the cellular response of that is evident by their expression. And so that's where you get this debunk moment. Well, maybe I should drink and smoke and do all these things. If you've got emotional content that will limit that, your demise will be evident within the duality. There's only one way you can surpass that level of acceptance. You have to believe that this drink you're having is good for you. You have to know it is. This hamburger you're having is good for you. This, decadent, whatever it is you're doing is good for you. Opposite of whatever, the consensus is within society. So This woman's like literally doing this. A week later, she goes, the woman goes, go over to see my mother. I'm like, oh, okay. This is getting better by the second, right? I go over there. I'm now a healer. I'm like, look, dude, I'm in training. I embody this, but like, don't call me a healer, right? I'm just learning, and still I'm not believing this whole ankle thing. It's like, really, Sure. Okay. I have no idea what your intention was. Well, of course I knew her intention. She wanted to woo me, and next minute I'm going to be her husband or whatever. The girl was, and the mother was like, this just like out of a Hollywood movie. So I turn up to her house, and she can't see over her belly, right? So she can't see over it. So she's sitting on her couch and she's smoking a cigarette. She's like, "Yeah, I've got this foot pain. Come on, this is your training right now. Take a look at it." I'm like, okay. And I get down there, I kneel down because she's on a seat, she's on a stool. I kneel down and she's got her foot up and she can't see her foot. I pull her sock off, and inside I go, what? I went inside, and I'm just looking at it, just casual looking. And inside, basically, it's a black foot. It's like gangrenous beyond. It's like, cut it off right now. Let's call the hospital. Let's make it happen. Half of it is completely black, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I've been having these pains. I'm like, I'm no doctor, but there's no way you're having pains. You're not feeling anything because this thing is like a runaway train. We just, in my mind, I'm thinking we need to get you to a hospital. She's like, well, what does it look like? Is that, I don't know, but, maybe we need to, and like literally, she was like a hermit. She wouldn't leave her house. She had, endless amounts of money, didn't believe in doctors, didn't believe in, she was just like in her own thing. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, we need to get you to a hospital now. And she's like, so what are you thinking? And I'm like, oh my goodness. Next minute, out of nowhere, this was part and parcel, many different things. I get this voice going, let's do this healing. I'm like, okay, what are you talking about healing? What are you talking about? Let's do this healing. I'm like, okay. She's sitting there, the foot's in front of me. Okay, let me see what I can do, because she's assuming I'm going to do this healing that she thinks I'm doing. And I kid you not, Benny, in 45 minutes, I watched that foot go from black to a fleshy pink color.
Wow.
To a fleshy pink color. And to this day, things become more materialized at a much faster rate. Like I think that was them easing me in on a transition of reality, right? Because it was so, it's like, I had no words for it. My whole body heats up. It becomes an amplitude of heat that is beyond sitting in a sauna, and it just transfers to a frequency. And you witness a miracle. Now, this is a daily, right? I could have people call me up and go, grandma's in a coma, boom. And next minute, the next day, she's out of a coma. The doctors don't understand it. What is going on here? Now, there are variables depending upon where someone is at their own journey. But what I have learned is there is no limit to what is possible. And I have learned that to frame it out, like, because we get a lot of information, yourself and I, when we frame it out, my biggest mistake was decades ago. I was, I started reading people's auras, and information came in. So I had this, literally, I went from a normal day to a computer screen with icons everywhere. And anywhere I put my eyes, I would get information. And there'd be colors and everything freaking me out with my eyes open. Yeah. And it was so overwhelming that I spent like 5 days in what they would define now in this spiritual community as a dark night of the soul, as you would put it, where literally it was just so overwhelming. It was too much. Like, I attempted to go to a movie. There was a scene in the movie where there's a sex scene, and there was this woman that was naked, and I literally, you're a human, you're a man, like you see a naked woman, you would assume it would be stimulating. I started throwing up.
Yeah.
I was puking, and like I had this what we call the unraveling beyond unraveling, and it all just came out of me, and I felt like, I don't want this. This has to stop. And so this went on for days and days and days until finally I got my teacher on the phone, because unavailable, of course not. Well, you don't want anything. No, not around. I can't get ring, nothing. Finally get them on the phone, and I explained everything I had happening, and they went, what was happening to me, and they're like, oh, "That's amazing. This is so exciting. I'm so excited for you. This is the next level stuff. Do you have any idea? People spend lifetimes, days, years, lifetimes searching for that experience you're having." I'm like, really?
Right.
I don't think so. I'm not sure. Every emotion, every thought you could possibly have at once, all at once, happening to you. It doesn't. I don't. I still to this day can reflect on that and go, I don't see how anyone would desire that type of experience.
Right.
It was so, and the level up was, I went straight into channeling, and I had a teacher that taught me channeling. I did it once, right? One time. And so I was in a group community setting, and one time Latsu came right in, boom. And I'm like literally blowing out chairs, literally blew out 3 chairs at the time. So I'm breaking them. And people in the class are like, I'll have whatever he's had. What is he doing that I'm not doing, that I need to experience that? Because it's such a heat and transmission that it was like everyone was in a sauna in that space. And just the affirmation, confirmation of what Benny's talking about is when you accept it. See, again, I attribute this to face value. I didn't, because as a young man, I was transitioning from that in my 20s as a priest. I was a bodybuilder. I was a power lifter. I spent my teenage years building myself up as a bodybuilder and power lifter. And by the time I finished in my early 20s, leading into this experience that I'm in right now, I was all about the physical, all about the body, all about the power from an external level in my perception. I was doing 800-pound deadlifts, 800-pound squats, stupid, beyond human state. Now, I came to a crossroads there where I realized that my hero at the time was Arnold Schwarzenegger, and my heart was destroyed because I picked up his book called Education of a Bodybuilder, and I just started following it. It's like, oh my goodness, if he looks like that, I'll just follow it. I'll look like that. And because I believed that at face value, I was acquiring those type of physical results. And people were like, what are you taking? I'm like, I'm eating broccoli and chicken. I don't know. What do you take? But my mindset was, if he looks like that, I can look like that. I'm reading his book. He says, this is what you do. This is how you do it. That's it. And then finally at 19, I discovered, because we don't have information like we do now, that, guess what? He was taking other external, and that crushed me. It just crushed me. I was like, oh my goodness. But I was still acquiring these gains, and then I just moved into a different state of consciousness and just went. But this is sort of like turning the dial from not having a religious background, not having a spiritual background, completely immersed in all things physical, all things physical, and flipping the switch to this whole realization of something greater, which is where a lot of people will come from, or they're looking for the Hollywood version. I did this one time where I'd never done meditation before. So I turned up to this class to do meditation to get an idea of what it is. Because in my mind, I'm like, that's for, I don't know what that's for, housewives and, whatever. It's like, it's not my thing. I want to pick things up and toss them around. Meditation doesn't even come into I don't see it that way. So I just go and try it out. I'm like, okay, this class, supposedly this grandmaster was doing this meditation thing. So I turn up to this thing, and there's a handful of people in this community center. And I'm like, oh, okay. We've got like this community center in the middle of like what would be considered, a ghetto. Literally, people screaming and yelling outside, ambulances, police cars, everything. It's like World War III outside the building, and we're sitting there, and they're like, "Oh, let's go and let's do a meditation." I'm like, "Okay, this is my introduction to meditation. I know this. I know that when I lift weight, I pick it up, I move it, I toss it." And so this is going to be really bizarre. And they're like, sit down in the lotus position. I go, what is the lotus position? Oh, you cross your legs. Anyway, so I'm like this gorilla at this point because I was big. I was like probably close to 300 pounds, muscle upon muscle upon muscle. I'm sitting there like a literally a baboon, a gorilla, trying to sort of like morph myself into this lotus. I'm like, there is no way. I'm getting back pain right now. This is killing me. This is truly killing my will to live. And I'm attempting to form a lotus position. And so the thing that got me, Benny, was this. It had this moment. It was like, this was my gateway. This is my drug. She sits there. She goes, okay, get in the lotus position. I'm like, okay. Now I want you to close your eyes. I'm like, okay, this is weird. I've never meditated, but I don't know what meditation is. So it's like, okay, close my eyes. I'm not sure whether I have the attention span to or not. I've never done it before. This is going to be interesting because in my world, I pick things up, I destroy them, I break them, I move them.
Right.
And so I'm sitting there and I'm having a go, close your eyes. And I'm like, okay, this sounds just like I expected. My cynical, skeptical personality is like, this is not for me. I got noise in the background. I got things going on. It's like, how are you possibly supposed to meditate around all of this? And this is my thoughts. And then she goes, take a deep breath in. I'm like, okay, I'm following it at face value. Nothing else to assume, nothing else. I take a deep breath in and now relax. And I'm like, okay. And I started to feel, whoa, okay. And then I'm like, but there's still noise. She goes, now let everything drop away and into the silence. And I'm sitting there. Literally, the sound stopped. And I went, what?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was my aha moment. That was my holy. Literally, you can feel how I was experiencing.
Yeah.
Holy moly, this is real. And I'm like, something has changed in me fundamentally. And whatever this is, I want more of it. I am onto something. Holy moly. And I literally felt like I had had completely unraveled and had a massage for 5 days. And this thing was like a 10-minute meditation. And then we did some Qigong and a couple other things. I was like, this is what people have been holding back from me. Why am I doing? Screw this bodybuilding, powerlifting stuff. This is the secret sauce. People have been lying to me. Yeah. Why am I down there? I can shift my whole reality in one fraction of a second.
Yeah.
And that was my gateway. That was my this is unreal. This is unreal that you can shift that. It will never be forgotten. Ambulances, dogs barking, the whole thing went to silence. And I was like, this is for real.
Yeah.
This is, and I'm like, why am I not doing this? What was I thinking? But this is what happens with people's consciousness. So when you go down the path and you're like, I need to be in this certain place, I need these certain things to happen, it will expose itself. It will reveal itself when you are ready for it to reveal itself. Or moreover, it will be a moment like Benny and I's where it's like you just get handed it and it's like your realization. It's like it's right there in front of you. There's no exceptions. There's no denying it. There's no watered down version. Maybe I made it up in my mind. No, this is really happening.
Right.
Now what? It's the exciting journey. It's like the magical mystery ride, the incredible journey to the Wizard of Oz. However you want to put it, it starts with that. And I attribute all of this to my imagination and the fact that I just take everything at face value. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, and where you are now, for people to trust themselves, because it's not a straight line, right? Growth and development in this game that we're playing is not a straight line as religion would have you to think, right? If you're coming from that space, it's almost like, okay, there's a straight line to understanding I'm supposed to do this, this, and this, and this is the outcome that I'm looking for. Well, the space that we're in, it's not a straight line. It can be you listening to this person today and you listen to this person tomorrow, and you get the exact answer from this person on this random video that you just happen to click on. And the question that you asked 2 days ago, you got it. Right? And knowing that that's what happens, you can be at peace with that. It's not a straight line. You never know. But what you'll find is that when you have an intention or you're just asking questions, and that's what we tell people too, you know, you speed this thing up by getting the questions answered that bubble up inside of you based on your life's journey. You know, there's a certain point where, yeah, you get more information, but even with us interacting now and people that are listening to it, it's more so about the energies that you're feeling that you're not even aware of than the words, right? That's where the real power is, because if you're tuning to the energies that are being offered, like we said in the beginning, that consistency, what's there for you to come in off of those frequencies can start to come in. But knowing that it's not a straight line, again, and that follow your inspiration and get the questions answered that bubble up inside of you, because that is where the next step and the next step and the next step for you is, not for the next person, but for you. And there's no right or wrong, or there's no bad questions. Whatever everything is spiritual. There's nothing that's not spiritual about you. So any question that you have, the answer will move you forward a little bit more. Even if it's, okay, what food is best for me today for my body? That's a spiritual question, right? What vacuum cleaner is right for me at this moment? I'm getting ready to buy one. Where's the vacuum cleaner that's highest and best for me? That's a spiritual question. And you can allow yourself to be guided to that vacuum cleaner. There's nothing outside of it. And when that vacuum cleaner shows up for you, guess what? You just expanded and you just grew in your awareness because you saw an intention materialize, right? You felt yourself get guided. You got guided to a certain store that you haven't been to before. And then when you walked down the aisle and you saw the vacuum cleaner and you knew that that was the one, you expanded. It's not a straight line. Follow yourself, trust yourself, trust the energy, trust your intention, and watch your reality, watch it materialize, watch it happen for you in front of you.
Yeah, you know, I mean, Benny just spoke on something so powerful. One last note on that the reason that I validated to the next level of that woman's foot, gangrenous foot, was they showed me a Polaroid of the girl's leg. I forgot to tell you that. So, because I would have been like, no, no. And when I saw that, I was like, there's something crazy going on here.
Yeah.
And so when Benny speaks on listen to that, I mean, my whole reality is this: everything is vibrant color. Everything I look at has information, color. Everything is coming to me at once. So exactly that. I go to Home Depot. I pick the shopping cart with the most vibrant aura.
Yep.
Then when I go to the checkout, I pick the person with the most vibrant personality or the aura that's transmitting that will check me out. That's just how I process my reality at this point, which is just what Benny said, is like, feel that. And I mean, it's so funny, the transmission part. I always talk about this. It's like you get this divine frequency. It's a sensory perception, right? And within many different sort of like practices, right down to, something as simple as hypnosis, magic, illusion, mentalism, where these people are basically tricking your mind to perceive things. Whereas, you and I can show people things that are very tangible and real, that are not a perception trickery, but you have materialized something in a 3D reality that is tangible. And so, that feeling that you're getting, the expansion and contraction, I use that as sort of a level. It's what some people coin as, I just call it divination frequency, or you call it, they call it ideomotor response. Have you ever heard of this term before? Ideomotor? It's like idea in motion, right? So you would attribute that to tarot card reading, pendulum reading, tuning forks, energy in of itself transmitted through you into something that gives you an answer, right? And so that, that's just part of it, is that information. Benny's talking about that. This is contracted. This is expensive. I follow this. I find the right vacuum cleaner. It's that simple. And it all has this energetic pattern. And just like, I mean, man, I don't know, but I'm very grateful to my teachers for bringing us together and just creating this newfound friendship, because this is a community that I believe is sort of not touched on enough. And that, there's not personally, my personal experience is there's not enough sharing. And that, a lot of people tend to, this is mine. I'm not playing with you. I'm going to take my bat and ball and walk away. Instead of it's a level up. It's consciousness,
and it feels like counter. That feels counter to the to the feeling. It feels like this is the truth.
Right.
Yeah, you just said is kind of what it feels like sometimes.
So you clearly you've experienced this also. It's like I reach out to people within the community, and it's like, you and I have, for me, I'm open to anybody. There is no a weight, shape, or size or transmission. I want to experience that bond with you. But there is a lot of people that your frequency, my frequency, it becomes an intimidation of frequencies. And so they don't want to express, they want to share. For me, this moment that you and I are sharing is our understanding of our experiences to help someone else understand theirs. That's all. This is what this is about.
I have a list of people that I want to get in contact with about interviews and that type of thing. And there's people on that list that I can feel that there's a separation. The first thing I do is I ask myself and make sure it's not inside of me. And I'm like, okay, something doesn't feel right about this name on the paper. Right. And so I just leave it alone. And if it comes back around, it comes back around. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But I can feel. Right. When we got in contact with each other, it was free flowing. It was free flowing. Even when we were trying to get the schedule together, it come together because I can feel the free flow in between just the emails. I can feel it.
I mean, and that power of sensory perception is an acquired skill that Benny has become more aware of. Over his journey, he's generated this acquired skill, and anyone can acquire this. You and I are feeling these sensory, and it's like people go, well, do I need to spend I'm like, if you're listening to me right now, you can acquire this sensory perception right now. And the only limitation would be you. It's like, so that's why I always go back to face value, this whole thing. And I think that's really what's guided me through my whole experience in this lifetime, is the simplicity of it. Oh, well, it just says ABC. I'm acting like most of my kids. My kids are between 11 and 8 weeks old. And, they're all just like, they literally, they're like, sponges. They just get around something. I don't limit them. I don't go, oh, well, this is how you're supposed to do this. You're supposed to sing that way. You're supposed to dance this way. You're supposed to draw this way. Yet they're around it, and they're just profound at acquiring that skill, because they don't have the limitations or construct that you have to follow it a certain way. They're inspiring themselves and raising themselves up to embody it, and it comes out in their very expression. And I mean, that's really, goes back to what you said about your children. You get them to start their day in that state. And I think that's where I was going to come back to that. It's like prayer, in my opinion, is powerful for that. Start your day, whatever that prayer might be. I'm just going to have a great day. Thank the universe, thank the Tao, thank God, thank whatever. Thank yourself, whatever it is. That's all you got to do. And then when you go to bed, the power of prayer is, you end your day that way, knowing you're going into the dream world, the dreamlike state, another level up of your sensory awareness, because this is another degree of that. Because when you go to sleep, you are leaving. You are in going in. You're expressing you. It's like more training. Create it however you want. As you go to sleep, put that prayer in motion. So that's what you experience. And then if you keep doing that, the margin of it becomes smaller and smaller and smaller. So the noise in between the beginning and ending of your day becomes smaller and smaller and smaller till you're able to embody that frequency, as Benny would put it, you know, holding that frequency.
Right.
As long as you want.
And understand that we're not talking about just things to do. We're talking about getting to the point where this is a way of life. Right? This is what everybody's moving toward. You're moving toward this being a way of life. I was talking to my older son, and we were talking about conditioning and programming, and he said, because he used to run track and cross country in high school, and he said you don't want to just go for a run, you want to become a runner. Right? And that's what we're trying to do here. That's what you want to do. You're moving toward being this, not up in a mountain somewhere, but as you go through daily life at Walmart and at the store and at your job, you're being this. And you've got so much reinforcement that you're doing the right thing, and you've seen the changes occur based on the person that you have become, that every time you witness these things, you become stronger. You become stronger in being you, and you're quickly becoming aware of, hey, this idea is not serving me. Hey, this idea, this interpretation, how I'm perceiving life is not benefiting me. This is who I want to be. These are the ideas that I want to embody. This is who I want to be. And you're able to quickly start making those adjustments. But this is who I want to be, and this is my way of life now. It's not just something that I'm doing. This is who I am being. That's where we're going.
Yeah. I mean, and it's just, it can be it can be realized instantaneously, or it could be a progression. It's just your perception. And so, it's like embodying that and then maintaining that, holding that state. And that's the part where that's the mastery. That's what I love to teach people, to make it palpable. So your attention, intention becomes realized in this 3D reality, whether it's a manifestation, whether it's a healing, whether it's magic, which is just basically a more detailed manifestation, not something that's really, some of the things that, I've had requests for when it comes to manifestation or magic is crazy. But understand that this is the universe. It's like this where people sort of get misdirected is, well, if I want something to happen for me, it's the law of three. I must think of three positive things. No, sorry. I don't want to bust the bubble. It's like as Benny said, it's abundant, timeless, endless, limitless, infinite. And that's for everybody. It's not like just for some people, it's for everybody. That means that, you know what, if you want to manifest every day that you're experiencing, and you're having the most incredible experience with your wife and your children, and it's abundant all day long, and all you're doing is just embodying love and expressing love and happiness and joy, and that's all you do, then that will become materialized. If you want to embody and materialize a manifestation of $1 billion on your doorstep tomorrow, that can be realized. And people are like, well, I thought it and it didn't happen. The only thing that's stopping you is what you believe in.
Right.
That's it. That's all. That's all. That's what it comes down to. Understanding that, know that to be true. Yet most people tend to go, oh, it's got to be more than that. It can't be that simple. Well, it's very simple. But, you also have this construct, as Benny has made very clearly, you've been conditioned from your conception to birth. You're a product of your environment. Moreover, if we ripple out into something a little bit more new age language like physics or epigenetics, if we want to get all technical, that can validate. I like to help people validate these things with other languages outside of the simplicity of just energy, frequency, vibration. Some people need to process it that way. Epigenetics, it means above the gene. You're expressing yourself with your environment. You are a product of your environment, which is creating the side effect of that expression. So you can through a thought, feeling, and emotion, generate the alchemical response from your pineal, pituitary, and thalamus, creating that secret source, using the culture medium that is the blood to shuttle that, to message that, to express that within the gene, and then express it outside of your physical body into the field, meeting with something equal to or greater than realized instantaneously. So when people go, well, I thought about a Lamborghini, it didn't happen. Well, you have to believe it. And there's a resonance. And quite frankly, it's never excited me to want to materialize a Lamborghini. Yet if I had to put my attention to it, I could have one materialized on my doorstep whenever I choose to, if that was something that I resonated with. It's not. But, is it possible? Am I going to say, no, it's not possible? Absolutely not. I just haven't seen it in my reality. Right. But I've seen so many other things that would then lead me to believe that is 1,000% possible, because it's happening to me every day of my life. It's like, Hogwarts school. Mm-hmm. It's like I'm a Harry Potter experience, because you think it and it becomes attention, intention, and becomes materialized. Mm-hmm. And that's how quickly it is. That's the transmutation of it. Yet we gradiate it, we make it sort of like morphed into certain things, and then you come across someone where you're at the point where Benny or myself can help you realize this at a higher level, because we're putting the pieces together. It's like that's that moment that you've had where you're now ready. You're ready to level up. You're ready to realize it. And you always show people. Do you what do you stay in the lane of? Do you have anything that's really inspired you, that continues your realization of this in relation to manifestation, magic, healing, anything of that kind? What's the sort of repeatable thing that you like, that you've validated?
Kind of, what you've been talking about. For me, it's just it's like a cumulative effect. It's like, take note of the things that you have initiated in thought or intention, and then coming in contact with its materialization. Because over time, it forces you to get stronger. If you're in this lane and you're playing this game of growth and development, and you're creating, and things are manifesting based on who you are on the inside and what you're offering. This is about continuously proving it to yourself. And you can start developing a list of this happened. I know I started thinking this, and you can utilize ideas that are completely to the left, right? Something you've never considered before. Put it out there and watch how it begins to materialize. And it may not be the main thing at first. You might start getting the information, like you've never thought about having a hot dog stand downtown in your city. Never considered that. But if you start intending that right now, the information and things will start showing up in your reality. And just start making a list. And the more that list grows, the stronger you will get on the inside. The bigger and more expansive your knowing will be, that I'm doing this. And there's no, you can't tell me any different. Nobody can tell me any different. And that's where that inner strength starts growing, and that knowing starts growing.
It's so powerful. Just like Benny says, it's like what I've really observed is, when it comes to manifestation, magic, healing, it's all in the same category. The fastest result, like I always get people to wet their whistle with something simple like the parking ferry. Have you ever heard of this concept, the parking ferry? Mm-mm. So I always get them to start with that. So in their mind, they're secretly holding on to this. Well, so Sifu said the parking ferry. Okay, let me try this. I'm driving to my local store. Mm-hmm. And in my mind, I'm like, I want a parking space at the front. Boom.
Yes.
And then they're like having this little secret conversation with themselves. No one's judging them. No one knows what they're doing. They're conjuring themselves. They're like, okay, what's the worst thing that happened? Nothing. And so it happens once. It happens 5 times. It happens 100 times. Mm-hmm. And the reason that it happens is because there's no emotional content. Mm-hmm. It's a throwaway. They're not committed to it. And so how you materialize something within this 3D reality from a higher dimensional state comes from removing yourself as part of this experience. It's no longer title. You are universe. For you to materialize a manifestation or healing, you must be at one with all things. It can't be a separation. It cannot be a separation for you to dive into someone's physical healing. Like I use this, a great example. My wife was curling her hair weeks and weeks ago. I just use this as a common one, but there are dozens and thousands. But she was curling her hair and she went and dropped a $300 hair iron. She's like, oh, bang, grabbed it with her hand. And she was like, oh, shit, let go. And like literally right there, we're looking at like a massive burn, right? Whatever degree you want to call it. And within your own eye, she screamed to me going, oh my goodness, I burnt my hand. All I do is drop in and I go, heal, 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 minus my content or response to her. And you watch the tissue shift back from inflamed red to the normal fleshy color before your very eyes. You watch it wiggle. The reason I say wiggle, like you want start to understand this transformation. It looks almost like you're literally watching something morph in front of your very eyes, and it's a level of consciousness and how it shifts. And so that's just the state. I'm not going, it's my wife, she burnt her hand, oh my goodness, what are we going to do, the poor thing? No, I just go heal, heal, heal,
right? Because
I'm there. I live there. That's where I am. And so that state of consciousness is then representative of altering within a 3D reality. And there's nothing more validating than watching it. And when you watch it, you're like, ooh, I can't unsee that one. That's never going to be unseen. That is realized. And this is what goes on. It's like, so people wet their whistle. It's like the parking fairy is literally an example of lack of emotional state. And so that's where, Benny and I were talking about the emotion to the feeling is so fundamentally different. And when you remove the emotion, what I always tell people is you can have your life experiences all day long. Have them, enjoy them. But when do you come to a point of wisdom? Wisdom is not acquired from the amount of years you've spent on planet Earth. Wisdom comes from being able to remove the emotion and the feeling from the experience. So then you can reflect on it and go, guess what? That's all this is. Now it's embodied my expansion of consciousness. Right. And I know that I've experienced this before and that's all it is. And then I can do it again and do it again. But that's only when you heal from the emotion and the feeling. And that's where practices like yours or myself is able to do that. It's able to get rid of that and you expand and you're able to go, that happened, but it's not triggering me. It's not affecting me. It's not evoking an emotional state of feeling. Right. It just is. Yes. So Benny, it's been absolutely incredible. Shop talk today, resonating with each other. We're really another amazing gift from the Tao, in my opinion, just a new bond and a new friendship, a new realization. I'm sure either one of us could look closer and we've probably had relationships in a past life that have brought us to this point. Yeah. And, and we'll get to that. I'm excited to explore more of our friendship and take it to the next level. And just, here on the platform now, I'm going to mention to you, I'm putting together a consciousness expo in September. So I'm closing out details on that in the next couple of weeks. So I want to, offer you an invitation to that consciousness expo, and I'd really love to see that. But way before then, I'd like to, get some collaborations going and see what we can get done to help raise people's consciousness, because it's necessary. It's 100% necessary with everything that's going on today. When you have incredible channels like yourself, that information needs to get out to help people realize their consciousness. It's funny, on a slight note, it's like you don't realize I had a I guess she would call herself a channel. Yeah, she calls it spirit. She was a couple of months ago, and she kind of just realized that she was dabbling around with stuff, and she'd been helping people, with their mental, emotional stuff for decades, right?
Yeah.
And so she'd access what she calls the Akashic records, and help people realize things from past lives and all this kind of good stuff. And then she started playing with the notion of physical healing. Like, oh, I started with something simple. Like in all these years, I never crossed my mind, but I had this massive migraine that I was suffering for days. And then I just thought, what if I just eliminate that? And it disappeared.
Yeah.
And she was like, I'd never gone down the physical healing route before. I was just in that spiritual, mental, emotional plane. And then all of a sudden, I just sat there for a minute and went, bye-bye. What have I been doing? But it's like you and I understand that we're resonating that frequency. That can be transmuted into anything. It doesn't have to just stay within, transformation of someone's awareness of a powerful message like the one you get from Abraham, as to shift their mental, emotional state or their spiritual state. That frequency can be directed and transmuted into a physical healing before their very eyes. So, I just found it really interesting that, we talk about all this stuff, and once it's like the old expression, once you see it, you cannot unsee it. It's the 4-minute mile phenomenon. I don't know whether you're familiar with the 4-minute mile,
Yeah.
but like, it's like, that's it. It's like, once someone's seen it, they're like, well, if you can do it, I can do it.
Right.
That's it.
What's
what
that?
are your thoughts on that? Yeah.
Go ahead. That mind that compartmentalizes things. It's like I can do it over here, but it doesn't cross my mind that I can do it over there. But we're energy beings. We're not physical beings. So that anything that you realize you're capable of doing, it's can be across your entire life, especially this energy game and this spiritual game and the things that you realize as you continue to expand your consciousness, as you continue to expand your awareness, and healing is definitely a part of that. The mental and emotional releases, it's all a part of that. The process is the same. That's what people need to understand. The process is the same. And absolutely, this has been a fantastic time. I've completely enjoyed it myself. And the workshop working together, absolutely in the future. Absolutely.
I'm so excited about that, and I'll get on my game and rustle up some things and have you just realize one day you need to do a workshop with me.
Yeah.
You're like, what are you talking about?
Whatever I need to do or what you need from me from my end, and I'll be all in.
Yeah, because people need to bathe in this resonance and frequency that you bring to this dimension. And you were given this awakening, this awareness, and you've been using it in your life for so many decades. It's like, okay, now I need to level it up even more and more people need to be aware of this power that's within them.
Yes.
And I honestly believe this, and I've had this confirmed by many people in our space. Once people get exposed to their frequency, they notice a dramatic change, and it's normally in the construct of a duality perception, which would be they either love you or hate you.
Yeah.
And that's just the construct of what we're operating in. And of course, the higher frequency promotes that sort of like realization for the individual, where they're like, I'm either really repelled by you or I'm drawn to you. And it's where they're at on their own journey of their awareness that puts them in that place where, oh, my stuff is there. And and they might even know what that is. They just know this person makes me angry. It's like, what are you talking about? Yeah, I can't be around them. And it's funny because I've done this before. There's a side note before we go, where I've grabbed someone and they've had a specific thought about reality, and so let's use political viewpoints. And so I'd grab 20 photos of known people that are a certain political persuasion and put them in two piles. And let's just call it red and blue, right?
Mhm.
So red and blue. And then I have the person who's sitting in front of those two piles with their persuasion of their belief system.
Mhm.
And I, without telling them what the nature of their association is, I say, so sit in front of these piles, and now I want you to pick the people you like and dislike and put them in two piles. And so they'd literally go, da, 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 boom, done. I'm like, okay. So what do you notice there? I don't know. I just like that person and like that person. And this is like within a picosecond, they're judging people, right?
Yes.
And then I turn the piles over, and the pile that they liked were the pile that had the same affiliated belief system they had. And the pile they didn't like were the pile of people that didn't believe in the same thing they believed in.
Yeah.
And you're like, what are the chances of that possibly happening? It's that quick. It's like that resonation, that frequency register. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, I see that absolutely. The energy is present. The idea, the energy and the idea is present, and we do it all the time. If you're not aware that the energy game is first, then you're bound to that. And you're doing it all the time. And we do it before we even know people. We do it with people across the street. You don't even know why you're repelled from a person. But that's why. That energy connection or disconnect.
Yeah. Yeah. And then learning, coming to people like yourself, myself, to learn to understand the true nature of themselves, that inner power, that connection as consciousness. That's the level up. That's the game changer, is when you can start being able to filter that and have an actual pliable, repeatable scenario where you can validate it for yourself. Because I always say, don't believe me. Don't believe San Qing. Don't believe my wife, Jade. Do it yourself. And then when you level up and go, oh, wow, this happened to me.
Yep.
There's no question. This happened to me. And that's the magical part about what we do.
Yep.
Is like, once they expose themselves to Benny or myself, there's a frequency and transmission that is undeniable, that it alters you from a subatomic level. So you're being altered no matter what. And so it's happening. And that's the part where people are like, I've got my bubble on, I'm protected, no one can touch me. I would agree with all those points. The only reason that I know I can touch you, and the thing that's going to freak you out because I can enter your energy, is because you're afraid. What? That's all it takes. So you can still have that construct. You can still invest in it. You can believe in the inner workings of that. And if you believed it 100%, then that force field, that protection would be second to none. And it would be, you want to patent that stuff and send it out there, because this is what happens with people. I agree with you. All of it, 100%. The only reason it's still not realized is in the back of your mind, you're still afraid. And until you realize you are me, I am you, this dance, as my dear friend Virginia Jenny would say, is we're going to do this dance. We're going to go back and forth. We're going to dance with it. And that's that dance of fear, that realization. So, it's exciting times for me, brother. I'm really excited because it was sort of funny, because I was sitting talking to Lutzu the other day. I was like, I'm like a little spoiled brat. I want more people like me around me.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, I hear you, but you could change your tone. You're kind of acting a little childlike. But didn't you say you want childlike? I mean, sometimes I have this dialogue where it's kind of funny. But isn't childlike the whole thing that you're telling me to teach people? Childlike, not like a spoiled brat. That's not what we're talking about here. But strangely enough, they did help me out with that, and poof, here we have a new friendship, a new bond, a new realization. And you know what? It's refreshing, brother. It's refreshing to be in the presence of such a profound frequency and transmission that you put out through Abraham, and all the information you share with the world. And so I'm really just grateful. And I know you're void for time. Oh, well, no, you're not void for time. Your time is limited. So at this point, I'm going to say thank you. And we're going to get in touch very soon and continue this. I'm going to send you, I'll send you my my number, and you have my cell phone. So if you want to reach out at any point, just.
Yep.
So again, thank you, brother. Thank you for coming on the podcast. Thank the audience for sharing all their time with us. And I am your humble servant and Sifu, Taoist Master Sun Quinn. Actually, whoa, start time out. Hang on. Before I cut it out, I always have a question. What's your definition of consciousness?
Consciousness. My definition of consciousness would be all things and everything all at once.
Yes.
All things and everything
Yes.
all at once.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And then in closing, what's going on with Benny right now? Because I'm about to be promoting you in new workshops we're doing. But besides my endeavors of leveling us up materialistically, what are you doing within your stratosphere? Workshops, website. I want to put all your social under this.
Okay. Yeah. And like you said, the information will be in the description, but we offer a workshop monthly. We offer private sessions. You can find us on YouTube, Consciousness Ascending / Benny R Ferguson Jr. on YouTube. We have hundreds of hours now of channeling sessions, channeling information you can benefit from. And we also have a private community. It's called the Ascension Accelerator that you can. There'll be a link in the description that you can listen to a presentation and get more information on that as well. But it's a private community where we support individuals closely or in close contact with them, helping them to accelerate the process of growth and expansion. And those that are in there now, it's really exciting. So that's get in contact with us and also, engage in some of the things we have going on.
Beautiful. Thank you, brother. Thank you once again. I'm so grateful to have you in my life. And so without any further ado, finally, I'm your humble servant and Sifu, Taoist Master Sun Qing, and I'll see you on the next one, guys.